Let's go, baby. This is another episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast. I'm your host, Noah Lack, and typically I bring on your favorite athletes to chat about the business they're building and entrepreneurship. Today, we're going to evaluate the landscape. We're going to take a step back and evaluate something that we've been creating for a long time now, and I can't wait to finally share it with you guys on camera. We've been doing these things called market maps. We've been collecting data on athletes from every major sports league and seeing what they're building and investing in. Some of the stuff you can find online, but other stuff you can't just go on LinkedIn and get this information, all right? You gotta be tapped in like us here at Athletes and Assets. We've leveraged our community, and they've been super helpful to give us some pointers, lead us to where players are building in. And so what we've been able to do is take the data on paper and be able to put it in a nice, beautiful map, which you can check out here. And so take a look at the NBA map, which we'll dive into. So this is for last season, all right? The NBA is probably the most rich group of data, literally and metaphorically. I mean, these guys do make the most money, so they have a lot of income to put in other places, quite frankly. If you're curious on the other market maps that we've done in terms of newsletters and content, check out our previous defensive line linebacker market map, our last podcast that we did where I described what that position group was involved in. Today, we'll do the NBA. And let me tell you something. These guys have their hands everywhere. The NBA's tentacles are real. It's probably the most influential sports league outside of just the sport they play. Real estate, wine, clothing, venture capital, tech. NBA players are all over the place. It's like you can't get rid of them. And there's not that many. So, less than 500 guys are in the league, yet this elite group of less than 500 people have incredible influence across multiple industries. And today I'll give some shout outs and highlight some cool individual stuff that some of these guys are doing. Now, you probably see in mainstream news a lot of these guys like LeBron, Steph, Giannis, Book, KD, with their projects, right? You had SC30, you had Boardroom, LeBron's Uninterrupted, right? So today, I won't go into depth on those because you can just go on your computer and Google it. So if you're interested, I'll take a 2-second pause. You can go Google that stuff. 1, 2. All right. Now let's talk about what the other players are doing because I think they're equally as fascinating. And to me, that's a better representation about where we're going in terms of the influence athletes have in business because, of course, the blockbuster athletes like Curry, LeBron, they're going to have this tremendous influence across the board. But it's very interesting to see what some of these guys who are a tier down or two, they still got hoop game, obviously. I don't want to, demean them, but what they're up to and what they're building outside of, getting buckets and traveling the world playing basketball. So let's dive in. Let's do an example. The consumer packaged goods category. Let's look at my man, Dennis Schroder. Dennis Schroder, Germany's finest, playing in the NBA. He's been in the NBA. He's an NBA veteran. So Dennis Schroder has a cologne company called Atelier Drip. Atelier Drip. Apologies if I botched the name. Fragrances. It's beautiful style and branding here from the German point guard. Eau de Parfum. I meant to say perfume. This works for me. Why I'm bullish on this is because Dennis Schroder has an interesting background. He is part Gambian and he's German. And for as a German living in Germany playing the NBA, he's a cultural icon. I mean, people really follow Dennis over there in Europe, and he's a hell of a player. So this works for me. You got the kind of European, swag, bringing it to the NBA, start the, cologne/perfume brand. Makes a lot of sense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing very well. If you just look at sort of their marketing, very clean, very clean. And I love how they sort of market the brand with men and women. And so Dennis Schroder, if he ever smells bad, he must be out of business. That's all I got to say. That dude's probably smelling good everywhere he goes. Pause. Okay. So we got cologne, we got the consumer package category. Cool. Harry Giles. I've talked about this on previous content. Harry Giles started his own trucking company called Lee G Logistics. It's a trucking company based out of his home in North Carolina, his home base, that ships units across the country. This was started when Harry was sort of in between teams and he got with his uncle. His uncle basically said, Harry, why don't you work on building a business to support you while you're not playing in the NBA? So Harry started a trucking company, which I think is super cool. I know very little about the trucking business, but I do know that it has been popular for certain NFL guys. And to see Harry Giles take on this new venture is pretty cool. So we just went from cologne to trucking. All right. We went from like fancy white collar to like blue collar, like America. Right. So like this is what we're seeing across the board. Now, this is another one I love talking about. NBA veteran Reggie Bullock has his own island resort called Bullock Island in Belize. You can go take a trip on an island owned by Reggie Bullock. All right. They got a basketball court, obviously a lot of scuba diving. It's a resort. I mean, like, I wouldn't even imagine where to start to build my own resort in the middle of the Caribbean. But Reggie's figured it out. So Reggie, please come on the pod, or we could do it on the island. Happy to bring Matt and set it up on the island. Okay, Matt's busy, but like we're gonna do it on the island. All right, like this is we got to make it happen. Okay, amazing stuff. Obviously they're still in progress, but look, man, this is what's happening right now. Dudes are building islands, resorts, okay? And we're not talking about a max contract player building a resort. We're talking about Reggie Bullock, who's a great corner shooter, vet presence, tough. I mean, come on, man. Who else is doing this? Pretty interesting stuff. Just don't go during hurricane season. Resorts. You like resorts? You like the finer things in life? Let's talk about wine. A lot of these NBA players are getting into wine, and it's showing. From Giannis to James Harden to Rudy Gobert. Obviously the French, the Sauvignon Blanc, right? You don't think Rudy has his own vineyard? Stephen Curry, LeBron, TJ McConnell with off-the-glass wines. Kevin Love, Josh Hart. CJ and his wife Elise are owners of a 318-acre vineyard in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. They must have liked Portland. Him and Dame. He has a vineyard building 91 Heritage. I think the wine business for a lot of NBA guys is more a hobby, more so than something they'll fall back on. I think a lot of people can become a sommelier, but how do you distinguish yourself in the wine business? I think you really have to go all in on that. And so these guys are active players. I think the wine business to me feels more like a hobby, a passion project, more so than like, this is what I'm going to do the day I retire. I'm going to leave the game and go back and tend to the vineyard. I don't think that's the case for a lot of these guys, but nevertheless, if you guys want to send us a bottle or two, please. I'm over 21, I promise. So pretty cool stuff from CJ and all the guys, building in the wine space. But this is the NBA, guys. It's a moonshot to make the NBA. And so we got to talk about the moonshot tech startups of the world, right? I could talk about that all day. Like shit, this could be a tech podcast from here on out and I'd be happy, okay? Spencer Dinwiddie and his co-founder Solo Ceesay started a Web3 social marketplace called Galaxy. In 2022, they raised $26 million from large funds to build out the future of Web3 and social. There's a lot of features that are still in development with Galaxy, and I think a lot of it actually, they're relying on sort of the crypto market to recover. Imagine a world where you can pay someone in Bitcoin or Ethereum. I think they're actually using a layer called Hedera, which is another Web3 layer I'm not super educated on. But imagine a world where, creators are making money off of their fans paying them immediately in crypto to get certain things, and maybe a shout out, maybe a text conversation. It's basically another way to monetize your brand, your image through blockchain, which their bet is that will be the easiest way to track and send payments in the future. So this is a moonshot for the future. And I know people out there are like, oh, Web3, I'm turned off, going to sleep, not interested. I think there's something here that needs to be further developed. We'll play a little bit of the trailer in the pod, but really cool stuff if we're looking at the future of Web3 and social. Yeah, it's a moonshot, but hey, I think a lot of people are interested in seeing how that pans out. So yeah, that's super interesting. Obviously, we had dog breeding. We had my guy Torian Prince on chat about building his own kennel, which he's been actively doing, and his new kennel's in construction in the DFW area. These guys are doing stuff across the board, and it's amazing to see that next season we'll do this again, and we'll get a lot wrong because guys are now adding stuff to the table. So every year, this map will become more and more filled out and enriched, which is crazy to think about. But this is where we're going. Because of the new collective bargaining agreement, because of the NBA's push on social to build players' brands and really get them out to the public and really lean into the personalities of the league, they have the green light to do this. And I think the NBA is the most advanced league in terms of letting their players show their influences in other areas. Obviously, you've seen politics, you see it in nonprofits, but business specifically, NBA players have a leg up on everyone else. And if you're an NBA player, you get to skip the line and get a seat at tables that people spend years working towards. But you earn that because you devoted your life to get to the league, and this is a byproduct of it. You get to basically get access to any industry you want as long as you're curious, humble, and have the appetite to do so. I am fascinated to see what happens in the future and where these guys are building. Today I didn't talk about venture capital because that one feels like I will devote another episode to that and dive on that specifically. Some guys I want to give a shout out to, obviously my guy Matt Ryan doing some great things in real estate and the investing space. Thaddeus Young doing great things in venture, transportation, and real estate. Want to give a shout out to Torian Prince again. Want to give a shout out to Cole Anthony doing his thing, building tech startup Game Up with his mother, Crystal. Really excited to see how they use tech to help people navigate the ever-changing youth sports landscape. I think that's super important. Obviously, you've heard the Russell Westbrook story. We've actually made content on that where he has a couple Toyota dealerships and car dealerships in his name, and he's made a lot of money off of his car. His dealership franchise is what a proper word for that is. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for these guys. But that's it for the NBA market map. If you like that, please like, subscribe, comment. What do you want to see? What more would you like to see in these episodes? What are you looking for? It's been another great episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast. I'm your host, Noah Lack. We just covered what NBA players are building and investing in. Once again, like, subscribe. We'll see you for the next one.